I'm Ashley Cooley, a birth, baby, and sleep educator and mom of 3. There's so much information out there, isn't there? This show is dedicated to helping you clear out the noise so you can figure out what will work best for your baby and your family. Having worked with countless families over the years, including my own, the information and strategies I'll share are based on these experiences, my extensive training, and we're even going to back it all up with some science. Because it's all about making informed decisions, and we're here to break down what it takes to raise well-adjusted, securely attached, and happy babies. If you're looking to learn more about your baby, gain more confidence in your parenting, and get as much sleep as you can through it all, you've come to the right place. Bringing up baby is about to get a little easier. Naps are necessary for babies. They need naps to rest, and they actually play a key role in restoring your baby's mental and physical bodies. So why is it notoriously so challenging for many families to get their babies to take adequate naps? What's at play here is largely due to their growth and development. As babies grow and reach certain developmental milestones, like the one that happens around 4 months of age, their world expands, and it can be a lot tougher for babies to settle and rest with all this excitement. Now, before this major milestone, which you may have heard as the 4-month sleep regression, not all, but many babies nap seemingly quite well, either getting some long naps in there or they're able to settle and fall asleep much easier. But after this developmental milestone, naps can often take a hit, and the long naps may become short again, or any nap, whether it's long or short, that your baby used to take easily is no longer being met with as much ease. This is because of you. It's not that it's your fault, but let me put it another way. Babies are born with the ability to sleep, and for the majority, they will often come in and out of sleep fairly easily when needed, as newborns. But they still need your help to do this. So you're helping them to fall or stay asleep either by holding them, rocking them, feeding them, bouncing them, swallowing them, doing the things. They still need, basically they need your help with this. And to some capacity, they're going to continue to need your help with this, but it does, or it can change, as it often does around 4 months of age with these developmental milestones. So once they reach this milestone, particularly this one at 4 months, if you happen to notice a change or worsening in your baby's sleep patterns or behaviors, it's because of you. You used to be solely that person. That person where baby could rest and relax comfortably and easily. And now you are still that person, but in addition to this, you're also a fun person they want to hang out with. So maybe when your baby was around, say, 1 month or 2 months of age, it used to be all, oh, hey, mom or dad or whoever, there you are, I love you, I'm tired, let's sleep, get cozy, fall asleep. Now that your baby is over 4 months of age, it's more like, oh, hey, mom or dad or whoever, there you are, I love you, let's sleep. Oh, hey, there, you're still here. What's up? What's going on? I'm kind of tired though, but what are we doing now? I think you get my point. Their world is just that much bigger. And so you're still very much that loving and securely attached, that person for your baby, but they just have so much else going on in their world that they never had before, new things that they're able to see and experience. And you're part of that. So where you used to be that calming, relaxing presence to help them fall asleep, again, you are still that person, but it's more challenging during the day because your baby is more aware of their surroundings and it's harder to just turn off. So you can now see how these naps can get complicated for some babies, right? But we're not going to take you out of this equation. We're not going to dive into how sleep training or helping your baby fall asleep independently can help with this sort of thing. It absolutely can, and sometimes this is exactly when parents do dive into something like this because they see these big changes. They might already see that they might be part of the problem in terms of just too much involvement can make it harder to fall asleep for their child. But again, this is such an individual and depending on the family, depending on the baby, depending on all sorts of things. So that's not the point of this conversation. But we're actually going to focus on the naps in terms of how long they should be, how often they should be, when the best times of day are to nap, and those kinds of things. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering if your baby could be napping more or better, ask yourself these questions. How is my baby's behavior throughout the day? How easy or challenging is it to get my baby to sleep? Is their overnight sleep being impacted? For instance, more wake ups, difficulty getting back to sleep in the middle of the night, or super early wake up calls? These are the questions you want to ask because babies who are well rested will fall asleep with relative ease and have a mostly happy or pleasant demeanor during waking hours. So let's break down naps at different ages and stages. As always, keep in mind the adjusted age considerations. So if your baby was born more than a week before their estimated due date, use their estimated due date to calculate their quote unquote true age, which will help determine these sleep expectations. All right, so now we're going to break down the wake windows, the number of naps, and general ideal lengths for babies up till about 18 months of age. Months 0 to 1. So basically the first 6 or 8 weeks or so, your baby's going to be napping very frequently. I mean, basically they're napping 24/7. That's all they're doing because they have strong hunger and growth needs here. And so they're waking up more often for nutrition. So they're basically napping throughout the day, but their naps could be as short as 20 minutes. They could be as long as 3 hours plus. There's such a wide range because we can't even call the sleep that's happening during the day as a nap. It's their sleep and it's the way it is. But they're usually staying awake. You know, if they are staying awake, oftentimes they kind of just sleep, wake up to eat, dirty a diaper or two, and then go back to sleep. But they do start getting these little periods, these stretches of wakefulness. They're usually feeding most of the time, but it's only about 45 minutes to an hour or so. So really your newborn is going to be sleeping very frequently. And again, usually they can do this with relative ease on their own, so long as you're holding them and meeting their other basic needs. Months 2 to 3, wake windows are starting to stretch, so still might be around 45 minutes, especially towards the earlier part of the day, but maybe climbing and getting as big as about an hour and a half. As they get older and as the day kind of goes on, it might creep up a little bit. They maybe have 5 or 6 naps per day, but again, this too really it matters because it depends on how long their naps are. So a 30-minute nap is just as normal and just as common here as a 2-hour or plus nap. It really depends on the baby. Sometimes it even depends on the day. So basically what we're saying here is the first 3 to 4 months, naps are a bit all over the place. They're starting to have some regularity, but we're really not going to see much regularity until the 4th or 5th month typically. So speaking of months 4 and 5, you're going to start to see more of that regularity in terms of, 10 to 12 hours of night sleep, usually still with a wake up or two in there for feedings, and then kind of a morning nap, a midday nap, a cat nap in the afternoon, and then bedtime again. But oftentimes at 4 months, like babies are still needing probably 4 naps a day. It depends on how long they are. If your baby's around 4 or 5 months of age and their naps are, 30, 45 minutes-ish in length, they're probably still getting 4 naps a day. And that's not a bad thing. Don't be worried that your baby's napping more than the other baby who's the same age. It really depends on the length of those naps, because what's so important here is to make sure your baby's staying well rested. Yes, we want quality sleep, but we also want to make sure that they're not getting overtired, so they're not staying awake for too long, because that will absolutely impact the next nap and probably nighttime too. Now, the other thing that changes in months 4 and 5 for baby when it comes to their naps is, like we were saying, that bit more of regularity. So they're usually having like a morning nap and then a nap either late morning or mid-morning around lunchtime, and then 1 or 2 cat naps in the afternoon. So here's where we want to start talking about the length of the naps. It is very much a developmental thing that not all babies are capable or able to or need to have long naps by 4 months. It's not like they turn 4 months and now all of a sudden they need to make sure they hit this quota, right? It's different for all babies. They all go through these changes at around the same time, but still there's going to be individual differences here. So I've worked with so many families who are looking for to help their little ones get some independent sleep skills in this 4-5 month range. And it's such a wide variety in terms of when babies are getting those longer naps in. For example, I've worked with many 4-month-olds I've worked with many families who have 4-month-olds that when we start working on the naps, they lengthen fairly quickly, or they're, within a week or two, they have 2 long naps a day. I've worked with 4 and 5 month old babies that maybe they're only able to get 1 longer nap a day and they're still kind of working on that second one. So there's such a wide variety here. But the point is we should at least start thinking about seeing if we might be able to help our little ones get some longer naps in, either by helping them go back to sleep after they've woken up from a short one, or just trying to focus on 1 nap a day to get it long. And that can look different for lots of babies. Okay, let's move on to months 6 through 8. Their wake windows always steadily growing, still might be somewhere in the 1.5 hour mark towards the early part of the day, but it can creep up to more like 2.5 to 3 hours towards the end of the day. So a lot of you probably notice that, right? That your baby can stay awake for only a short time in the morning, but as it gets into the afternoon before bed, they're able to stay up a little bit longer. That absolutely makes sense. It's like they're just gearing up with these naps to get a longer and longer wake window in there. So that's very, very normal, very common to see that. So again, months 6 through 8, the wake windows are usually around 1.5 to 3 hours, give or take. And it's around this time too that sometimes we hear about these particular times of day where sleep can be really good. And there's actually a lot of truth to that. Most babies tend to wake up somewhere between 6 and 7:30-ish. And they're going to bed around 6 to 7:30-ish p.m. too. And in between, we've got some naps during the day. And so for babies over 6 months of age, there can be some younger babies too. And sometimes babies have to be a little bit older. Again, we're generalizing here. But science has shown us, research tells us that they actually might be able to sleep better if they nap around 9 a.m. and around 12:30 for their first 2 naps. I'm going to talk more about those first 2 naps in a minute and why those are the longer ones and the important ones, but I'll get to that in a second. So the reason why 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. or 12:30 are those kind of those sweet spots, we actually call them the biological sleep waves. So we want to catch these waves. We want to figure out when our baby has these waves of sleep so that we can catch it more easily. They can fall into a sleep much more easily, and they actually have a higher chance of sleeping longer if they're on or in this sleep wave. So for many babies that wake up within that time frame and go to bed within that time frame, the 9 a.m., 12 p.m. is a guide for this. So you still need to keep wake windows into consideration though here. And this is where sometimes the whole nap conversation can get complicated because it really does depend on the baby, because some babies will nap great at those particular times day after day, while other babies need a little bit more flexibility, and it depends on how well they slept previously and all that kind of stuff. Now, before moving on to the rest, I want to stop here for a second and talk about the nap lengths for this age group. The age group of where we're still napping at least 3 times a day. So a short nap is basically classified as a cat nap, so around 30 minutes or so. These are common and normal, especially for babies under 6 months. But when your baby is able to get in some longer naps, when we know they're developmentally capable of doing this around 4 or 5 months of age, we're actually not looking for them all to be long. It's the first 2 naps of the day that are très important. They're very important because they are mentally and physically restorative. This means that your baby's body will benefit the most from these naps if they are at least 1 hour long. This is because it usually signifies that your baby has linked at least 2 sleep cycles. What is a sleep cycle? It's how our bodies move in and out of different phases of sleep. For instance, when we refer to people or babies being in a light state of sleep, they're in REM sleep or rapid eye movement, their dreaming state. When babies are a bit more challenging to wake up, if you ever had to do that, or they're sleeping very soundly, very still, this is usually when they're in a deeper state of sleep. And while all states of sleep are important and have their own functions, it's in the deep sleep where cells rejuvenate, growth hormones peak, memories are stored. We basically want as much of this as we can. So one sleep cycle, if you happen to notice that your baby wakes up at 20 minutes on the dot or 28 minutes on the dot or 35 minutes on the dot, usually it's somewhere between like 25 and 45 minutes, with 30 minutes being very, very typical. That is one sleep cycle. And so if we can link at least one of those for their first and their second nap, this is good. And this is true for babies napping, once, twice, or more a day. But it's always those first two naps that are kind of the really important ones, though they're all important, if I'm being honest. So for babies napping more than twice, the third nap, and possibly still the fourth, if we're talking months 4, 5, and 6 here, they're actually, those afternoon naps, they're actually meant to be cat naps. They're meant to be short because their only real purpose is to get your baby from that second nap to bedtime without totally losing it. Okay? So they just need like a little power snooze to get them through the day. But naps 1 and 2 are mentally and physically restorative. They really can make or break their behavior or how the day goes, right? Which you've probably have noticed. So, but I will say sometimes that nap 3 and maybe nap 4, if it's still being had, sometimes those are the longer naps for babies. And that's not really a bad thing. To those babies, I say, good work. Because usually what it tells me in that situation is that their bodies kind of realize if they're getting the shorter naps earlier in the day, and their body kind of realizes like, oh man, I wish I got more sleep. I need to try to catch up on that. And then they usually, babies can make up for it later in the day. That's not a bad thing. It's all contributing to their total sleep needs. And eventually what we end up seeing happening in these cases is that the baby will work it out on their own. They'll eventually get those longer naps happening earlier in the day, and the afternoon naps will naturally become shorter. So it kind of all works out in the wash if that's happening. Okay, back to our timings and expectations for naps for the older babies. Months 9 through 12. Basically, usually they're on 2 naps a day here. They're ideally they would be at least an hour to an hour and a half each minimum. They roughly tend to happen, like their sleep waves tend to happen around 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. ish, but their wake windows are looking like 2-3-4 or 3-3-4. So you wake up in the morning and 2 to 3 hours later, you're having a nap. You wake up from that nap, 3 hours later, you're having another one. You wake up from that nap, 4 hours later, you're going to bed. So it kind of can take on that kind of a pattern in these months. Months 13 through 18 is usually when babies are dropping down to 1 nap a day, which will usually end up being somewhere within like that 12 to 1 range. Ideally, this 1 nap is at least an hour and a half. Ideally, maybe a little bit longer, but an hour and a half would be common and typical and just fine. They often can be shorter at first when they're first switching down to 1 nap or going to daycare. Don't worry if you're providing all these opportunities for your baby to get them to nap, or the daycare provider is, or whatever, and it's not happening. Your job is to lead the horse to water. You cannot make the horse drink. I really don't mean to compare your baby to a horse. That's not what I'm doing. But you need to set up the stage. You need to set up the environment. You need to help your baby however you can, and then it's their job to do the rest. To stay asleep or to fall asleep, it really depends on what you're going for here. So now, the 2 big follow-up questions that I get when talking about naps are these. What do I do if my baby skips a nap? And how do I know if I should give my baby that 3rd or 4th nap, or do I make it an early bedtime instead? So let's talk about it. What do you do if your baby skips a nap? Well, basically, you got to bring the next nap forward a little bit, or at least bedtime. The next time they're meant to sleep, you have to bring it forward. You can't just skip that nap and then let them stay awake for however X number of hours until their next nap when they supposedly or would typically go down. They're going to get overtired here, and it's going to make that nap harder for them to fall asleep for it. It might end up being a shorter nap, and it can mess up with bedtime. So if you can help prevent that from happening, I'm sure you would like to, for your sake as well as babies. So definitely bring the next nap or bedtime forward by up to an hour, and if not more. It really depends on the age and lots of things. But I guess the point is, try your best not to let baby get too overtired. If they do get overtired and they do struggle with the next nap or bedtime, that's okay too. It's not going to totally destroy them. But it's just good to know that, oh, maybe it was because we skipped that nap, or that nap was something happened, and you chalk it up to like, oh, well, that's life. We'll get back to it tomorrow. Okay, life does happen in here, so we got to keep in mind that as well. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. Now, the next question of how do I know if I should give my baby that third or fourth nap or make it an early bedtime instead? This is a big one, because haven't we all been in that position where your baby wakes up at like 3 or 3:30 and you're like, are they going to get another nap? Do I try for another nap? When should I try for that nap? But it's getting too close to bedtime. Okay, now I'm trying for the nap, but they're not falling asleep. Are they going to fall asleep and think it's bedtime now? Like, there's so many questions that come up with this. I'm sure most of you have been in these situations before. So what should you do? This is where I like to have a cutoff. I like to have a cutoff for the day sleep. We need to differentiate between daytime and nighttime. And again, here we're really talking about those babies over 4 months of age, because babies younger than that can have, different sets of bedtimes and that kind of thing. It's a little bit more scattered. But after 4 months of age, I say cut off the day sleep by 5 or 5:30 p.m. So if you can conceivably help your baby or get your baby to sleep for that last nap and wake up before 5:30, then call it a nap. If you can't, if they're like, well, actually it would be more like 5:20 by the time I would put them down, if they don't fall asleep right away or they only get 10 minutes. So we want to have a cutoff. So if you're feeling like I can't get that nap in, or my baby won't be able to get that nap in time, then instead we're going to push it a little bit and aim for an early bedtime, which could be as early as 5:45, 6 p.m. And that's because we don't want them to get too overtired, but giving that little extra push at the end of the day will help your baby differentiate that nap from bedtime, or bedtime from a nap. Okay, so I usually use 5:30 as the guide for those younger babies, maybe those still under 5 months of age. But usually over 6 months, I tend to go with 5 o'clock, because they can stay awake longer at the end of the day, and we don't want bedtime getting pushed too far back. A 7:30, 8 p.m. bedtime is pretty much the latest bedtime I would ever want any child to be sleeping. My 8-year-old is pushing the 8 o'clock bedtime now that she's getting older, and it's scary. It's scary. I'm not ready. But that's a whole different kettle of fish. All right, last question here is, where should your baby be napping? Well, in Canada, that's in a safety-approved crib, cradle, or bassinet. Yes, many babies will nap if being held or out for a walk or car ride, and that's totally fine too. But please also check out episode 3 of the Bringing Up Baby podcast on car seat safety. It's not in the names, so I should probably change that, but it's actually mostly about sleeping in car seats, so it's worth checking out if you haven't already. So is it important that babies sleep in a consistent space for optimal sleep? Yes, kind of, especially more so for babies over 4 months of age, but that doesn't mean that you can't get out for a nap or two once in a while, or in between, or just, again, have life happens in there. Ideally, they're sleeping in their cribs most of the time. But if a nap does have to be while you're out and about, or you just want to get out and about, try to have those on-the-go naps be the afternoon ones, so naps 3 or 4. Oftentimes, they're easier to get with some fresh air anyway, and because they're just kind of a cat nap just to help your baby get through the day, it doesn't really matter so much if it's in motion. But ideally, they would be laying flat and sleeping soundly in a crib on a flat surface in a safe space, because that's actually where they're able to get into a deep sleep and stay there longer. If they are sleeping in motion, sure, they might have a longer nap at times, but it doesn't mean it's going to be better quality. Okay? So for babies who are only napping twice a day or less, as long as they're getting a decent length in there, you should be able to get out and enjoy that sunshine in between the naps, so we don't have to worry about when that's happening. Speaking of getting a decent nap, I bet there's one more question you'd like me to answer. Am I right? How to lengthen those naps. Hot damn, this is a big topic. One that almost deserves its own episode, but I'm going to do what I can right here, right now. If you are looking to help your little one lengthen some of their naps, there may be a way to help them do this after they've woken up from a short nap. First of all, I would only try this if baby's nap is really short, like around that 30-minute range. If it's closer to an hour or more, definitely take it. It's great. It's decent. Sometimes going to them or closer to them a few minutes before you know they're going to be waking up, because I know some of you know right down to the second when they're going to wake up. So maybe about 5 minutes before, and gently rock them back to sleep. You might do this by just placing a hand gently on their arms, which are a bit crisscrossed around them, or across them, I should say, on their belly. And then you would gently rock side to side, not too fast or not with too much force. You might even shush near their ear a little bit if there isn't any other white noise present. This might help them link to those sleep cycles, but it can be tricky at first. It usually also works better for those younger pups. So just one way that you might be able to do that if you're not already, say, holding your baby. You may decide or want to sleep train, which again is just helping your baby learn that they can fall asleep on their own. There are many ways to do this, and rarely for families that I work with anyway, does this mean leaving your baby to cry for long periods of time. So just say it. And lastly, I would just remember to make sure that your baby's well fed, because that is absolutely a legit reason that they wake up. So let's recap here. Let's remember that there's no need to count or restrict naps before 4 months of age. After about 4 months of age, because there can be a range here, it is great if babies can try to get at least 2.5 hours of daytime sleep. This would be the minimum. There's no limit to daytime sleep, unless it could be causing an issue overnight, and that's another big topic. But typically speaking, I try not to limit the daytime sleep because it absolutely helps with the nighttime sleep. Make sure your baby is sleeping regularly based on their adjusted age, and wake windows are key to naps. They are key. Please remember that it's very common and normal for those younger babies to have shorter naps. I mean, it's common for lots of babies to have short naps sometimes, absolutely. Some babies are perfectly capable to have longer naps that might be over an hour by 4 months of age, but honestly, most aren't doing that until well into their 4th or 5th or sometimes even 6th month. So just because your baby is having short naps, even if they're older than this, go back and ask yourself those 3 questions. How is my baby's behavior through the day? How easy or challenging is it to get my baby to sleep? And is their overnight sleep being impacted? More wake-ups, difficulty getting back to sleep, super early wake-up calls, all that kind of thing. If everything's going just fine and the only issue with those naps is that they're a bit of a nuisance, you're still in good standing there, mama. But if you're not sure, or you think some changes do need to happen in the nap department and you'd like a bit of help with that, absolutely reach out to me and we can work on things. Now, today's Mental Health Minute is wrapped up in a bit of a conversation about this show, Bringing Up Baby. Starting this podcast was a huge leap for me, yet somehow it made sense. I am so thankful to all of you listening and who continue to listen and follow what we're trying to do here. Bringing up babies is so rewarding and so beautiful, but it also has its challenges. We're here to get everybody on the same page, not with their ideas or decisions, absolutely not, but with the knowledge of what the real deal is out there. Let's declutter the noise so not only can we be well equipped to take care of our baby, but we can also clear space out for any judgment we put on ourselves or others to try to do things a certain way. We're all trying to do our best with the information we have. So let's get good information, yeah? And put in the work to do what's necessary for your health and your well-being. If something doesn't feel right, speak up and go looking for those things that spark joy. Bringing Up Baby has definitely sparked joy for me over these past many months, and I know it's going to continue to do so because I'm definitely not going to stop talking about it. But it saddens me to say that we do have to say a quick little farewell. Some things are unraveling over here, don't worry, in a good way, but unfortunately it means that Bringing Up Baby will have to be on pause for now. I really hate to cut the first season shorter than I planned, but I hope you'll keep following along on Facebook and Instagram. There may be some exciting news coming in a few weeks. And no, I'm not having a new baby. I'm just going to say that right now. So until then, I'm still here for you as a childbirth educator if you need prenatal classes. I'm still here for you as a child sleep consultant if you need help with your little one getting their best sleep. I'm still here for you as a child passenger safety technician if you need help installing or properly checking your little one's car seat. And I'm always here to talk about birth, babies, and sleep on our social media pages. Keep following, keep in touch, and I'll be back. Looking for more? Check out birthbabysleep.ca where you'll find new baby resources, prenatal classes, and sleep help during the childhood years. You'll also find me on Facebook and Instagram at birthbabysleep. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember to leave a review or a rating so that others can find us. I'm Ashley Cooley, and we'll see you back here next time.